Hey guys, tired of feeling stuck in your dating life and striking out in the dating game? You're not alone. Maybe you just need some good coaching. Welcome to Just Ask Her, the no BS podcast for real dating advice straight from a woman's point of view. Dating expert Gracie Pleshcourt and her co-host, certified life coach Tracy Pleshcourt, are here to give you the play-by-play on how to attract more women you're interested in. So, let's take back control of your dating life. This is Just Ask Her.
Welcome back to Just Ask Her, the podcast that helps you date with confidence, connect with real women, and finally feel in control of your dating life. I'm your host, Gracie, here with my mom and certified life coach, Tracy. In today's episode, we are diving into 3 honest, vulnerable submissions from men navigating dating challenges in all kinds of environments. A gym, where your ex keeps showing up. A Dallas bar scene, where it seems like every woman is taken and flirting. And a small Canadian town where the dating pool feels more like a puddle. So this episode is for any of you who have felt like your location is a barrier when it comes to your dating life, as well as anybody who's struggling to get over an ex.
All right, let's get into submission number 1 from Ray. We titled this, How Do You Heal When You Keep Running Into Her? He asks, how do you do no contact with someone who goes to the same gym, small town, or that you may see regularly?
Yeah, so this one is a little bit different than our normal submissions.
Short and sweet.
Yeah, we usually have pretty in-depth situations with lots of details, but this one had come up quite a few times. Where this no contact rule even comes from, it's for people who are trying to get over their ex. There is a lot of rhetoric out there about what this no contact rule means. And essentially, it is time for you to give yourself space from the relationship and the person you were in the relationship with and all of the feelings that come with it. The no contact rule is really important, especially if the breakup wasn't your idea. It can be one of the hardest things to do, but also one of the most important things if it's time to get over the ex. There's a lot of benefits that come from doing the no contact rule, not only giving yourself space to heal from the breakup, but it keeps you from doing anything impulsive that you might regret down the line. If you guys broke up, you broke up for a reason, and whether or not that reason makes sense to you right now, it's worth giving yourself the space to move past this. Trust that if it is meant to be, you guys will figure it out. While it's a big adjustment and it's hard to go from seeing and talking to somebody every day to not talking or seeing them at all, but it gives you the space that you actually need.
No contact probably is more of an exercise in emotional detachment than it is physical detachment.
100%.
If you are getting buy-in on both ends, that's going to help the physical side of it. But the emotional side is far and away more challenging. It doesn't just mean choosing to not engage physically. It's more emotionally and mentally. So if you do see her, this means no lingering glances, no wondering what she's thinking, no overanalyzing things. That's the part that you're really going to have to master. The mental and emotional challenges that come with a breakup are far and away harder than the physical.
Yeah, and no contact becomes especially hard if you're running into her all the time.
Yeah, a small town is for sure going to require mental mastery. Your peace is not going to be found in her absence. It's going to be found in the discipline that you create out of redirecting your mind and reminding yourself why you came to this decision so that you're feeling more and more empowered. You're actually using any sort of run-in as a reminder that you did the right thing. Use it to your advantage.
What would you say for the guys that didn't want the breakup and are having a really hard time letting go of the idea that this is just temporary or this is just heat of the moment, it'll cool off?
I think that's where you can start to practice some compassion for yourself, some empathy for yourself. You didn't choose this. And of course, you're sad and maybe a little shocked. That makes a lot of sense. I think practicing that kind of compassion is going to keep you from tipping into resentment or any sort of obsessive type behaviors. So ask yourself, what is the most loving and compassionate thing I can tell myself during this time of my life?
Yeah. And what would you say for the guys feeling like it's really hard to go no contact because they don't want to break up? They think it's a mistake.
Yeah. Take baby steps. Don't look at it as a forever thing. It might be, but that can be very self-defeating instead of just focusing on the moment. So let's just look at what no contact means today. And it's more of a mental and an emotional challenge than it probably is going to be physically.
Like for Ray, having to see her all the time at the gym and different functions, it's important that you remind yourself that if this is a relationship that's going to work out, then the space that you guys are taking for the breakup needs to happen. And it takes two people wanting it to work or wanting the relationship to come back together in order for it to actually come back together. And so if you are in a place where you're struggling with the idea of this being done or the idea of just the breakup in general because you don't want it to happen, it's super important to remind yourself that if there was to be any chance here in you guys getting back together, you need to allow yourself to have the space. And if it's something that the two of you can work out, I think the space is only going to help the both of you miss each other and realize each other's value. That's another benefit of doing the no contact. It really shows that you know your own value. It really shows that you understand your worth and you understand that if this relationship is going to work out, you have to give it the space that it needs.
Yeah. And for those of you who are listening who, the no contact is coming at the end, the absolute finale of a relationship, now is the time that you're meant to heal. And healing isn't going to happen through avoidance. Healing is going to happen with intention. Mm-hmm. And so whether this no contact is in place in hopes that it will mend a relationship or it's going to end a relationship in a way that's maybe going to make it easier, ultimately, it's not about the avoidance. It's about the exercise, the self-discipline that you have to manage your mind. And a lot of people have a hard time self-coaching. This is a great opportunity to reach out and get support, get a mental health professional on your team that can help. Being in a small town where you're running into somebody, it becomes this practice in noticing her, but then treating it as if you were seeing the clouds in the sky. You just notice her and you move on. Mm-hmm. Like really try to wrangle in the overthinking and the catastrophizing or speculating. None of that is going to be helpful. So it's just an act of noticing and letting it go.
Yeah. Your fear-based brain will come up with false narratives that are not serving you. Like, I wonder what she's thinking about me, or I wonder what she would say if I went up to her, or
who's she spending her time with?
Who's she spending her time with? Yeah. Are we going to be able to get back together? There's so many things that your brain will do to try and keep you safe. And it's super important that you decide what it is that you want when it comes to this breakup. Decide ahead of time how it is that you want to feel when you're in those situations, when you run into her at the gym. Decide intentionally. That is probably the best first step because that allows you to think from your logical brain rather than your emotional side of your brain. You see her at the gym and you immediately register that as, okay, I knew this was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And I decided that I want to feel calm, or I decided that I want to feel at peace.
And those feelings are always going to come from a belief. So deciding how it is that you're going to be thinking is actually the key. One of the best pieces of advice I could give is having an expectation that you are going to see her. Mm-hmm. If you're in a small town, expect that you're going to run into her so that you can have these beliefs in your back pocket when you do see her. And it can be as simple as, I knew that this was going to happen and I have the capacity to notice her, to maybe even greet her and move on.
Mm-hmm.
Or I have the capacity to remind myself of why this is good for us both.
Mm-hmm.
Or I learned a lot from this relationship and it's complete.
Yeah.
Right? There's all these other ways to direct your mind, but it's so much easier to decide what it is you're going to be thinking if you decide ahead of time. When emotions are high, intellect is low. So you want to get yourself out of that hotbed and make the decisions ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
Have the expectation that you are going to run into her, and do yourself the favor with having those kinds of thoughts and feelings in your back pocket.
Yeah.
Thank you for writing in. We've seen the no contact phrase in a lot of the submissions, so we decided to take this and hopefully help a lot of you that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Hey there. If you're loving the Just Ask Her podcast, please take a quick second to rate us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It helps more awesome listeners like you find the show. And don't forget to spread the love by sharing this episode with all of your friends. All right, back to Just Ask Her.
All right, the second submission was written in by Travis, and we titled it, Was She Flirting With Me or Just Making Him Jealous? Hey, Gracie and Tracy, my name is Travis, and I'm from Dallas, Texas, born and raised here in the DFW metro. My question for you both is, why does dating seem so difficult in major cities? Personally, I don't have trouble meeting women. It just seems like they're never actually single. There always seems to be some guy on the side that they're just friends with. I actually have a story about this that happened to me late last summer. I met a woman at a bar, which I'll admit isn't my preferred place to meet women. I was just out one weekend visiting a friend who works at the bar, mainly there to just watch some local bands play on stage in the back. I was hanging out when this woman started looking over at me. Eventually, she approached and started asking about my hobbies and what I do for fun. I told her I do freelance photography as a hobby and that during Dallas Mavericks NBA season, I attend games. She seemed really interested, and we ended up following each other on Instagram. After that, I walked to the back for a bit. Later, we bumped into each other again, and she introduced me to her group of friends. One of them was the guy she had come with. I started chatting with all three of them, but then I noticed the guy rubbing his hand down her leg. As soon as I saw that, I quietly stepped away from the conversation and went back to the stage area. I avoided her and the group for the rest of the night until I left around 10 p.m. When I left, I just said, "Bye, nice to meet you," and she replied, "You too." It's worth noting that she was pretty drunk and I don't drink anymore myself. That kind of situation happens a lot here. Women often seem to already have someone, even when they're out flirting or meeting new people. Honestly, it felt like she may have just talked to me to make that guy jealous or try harder to pursue her. I've also heard similar stories from other guys around here. So why is this such a common issue? It seems like it happens a lot.
Okay, Travis, I hear the frustration, and it probably feels like there is just this sea of women, but in your case, it seems like a lot of them are only half available.
Or not available at all.
Yeah. And so I want you to reframe the way you're thinking about these women that you're meeting at the bars, because if you have an expectation that they're either trying to pull one over on you or none of them are available, the energy that you are approaching with is going to also only be half available.
Yeah.
You're going to be in this scarcity, fear-based mindset that is either going to attract exactly what you're afraid of or what you're expecting, or it's going to turn people off.
Yeah.
And so I think that this has a lot more to do with the way you're thinking than anything else.
Yeah, 100%. You actually should be going into it with the opposite mindset of, I'm not going to assume anything until I have facts, or I'm not going to assume whether this is a possibility until I have more information. Because before you actually have qualified any of these women, you're immediately deciding in your head that she's single and I'm going to try for it.
Yeah. Or I'm trying to not get rejected.
Yeah. And you don't even know if she's worth being rejected by.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes. In
yourself.
approaching the interactions to be chosen, you need to be approaching these interactions with discernment.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so common. And of course, if you see somebody you're attracted to, of course you want to strike up a conversation. Of course you want to get her number and have it turn into a date. But you're getting like 10 steps ahead of yourself. You haven't even started a conversation with her. And if you had approached this conversation, the one that you're talking about in the scenario, from the mindset of she's in a relationship until proven otherwise, you probably would have had a very different outlook on this. Rather than getting upset that you saw a guy touching her, you probably would have been like, oh yeah, like I knew she was in a relationship and no biggie, moving on. Right? I don't think that you have to go into every conversation with your guard up by any means, but I also think that it's not serving you to go into every conversation hoping that they're single. It's a very common thing that you're going to run into girls already in relationships, and that's okay. You should look at these as opportunities to talk to more people, meet more people. You never know who she knows. She has a whole group of friends. You're telling me that not one of them was single. You probably didn't even find out because you were so focused on this specific situation, right? You're going to have much better luck if you start approaching it from a different mindset rather than, of course she's taken, or of course this guy is all over her, and just like all the rest of them. That is not serving you. That's not going to help you get anywhere with women. It's probably having you show up in a resentful way. Like, I wouldn't want to talk to anybody either if I felt like I was being snubbed every time.
Yeah. You got to stay aware of that judgmental mindset and start using emotional availability as a filter. It's not something that you're out there trying to fix. You're actually filtering out the women who are right or wrong for you based on their emotional availability. The truth is that it's probably just as hard to date in big cities as it is in small cities. The big cities probably feel loud and they feel crowded. And you can overcome that by being grounded, being still, being intentional. That's what's going to make you stand out. So you've got to decide ahead of time how you're going to think about dating in a big city.
Yeah. And then also ask more intentional questions. If you start chatting with somebody, the conversation's going well, and it seems like she's into you, or you're getting signs that she's into you because she's the one that came up and started talking to you, that's when you start asking the more intentional questions. So who are you here with? You have a boyfriend? Did you come with your boyfriend? Or asking, what do you do around here? She asked you that question. Did you ask it back? Did you figure out what she's doing on the weekends? Did you figure out who she spends her time with? There are questions that you can be asking to find these things out quicker if she is seeing somebody. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's going to tell you the truth. There's always going to be a possibility that somebody's not going to tell you the truth or is potentially hiding a relationship, but your odds will be better that you stop running into this if you change your mindset going into it, and you also take the time to qualify and see if she's even an option.
Your primitive fear-based brain wants to be right. So it's going to look for the evidence to make you right about living in a city of half available women.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to go out to the bar scene and your brain is going to be scanning for all the half available women so that you can tell yourself that you're right about that. So knowing that makes you exempt from being able to use that any longer. Now you have to decide, okay, I'm going to find the women who are fully available. And I live in a metro area where my chances, my odds of meeting that woman is much greater. So now you've got your brain redirected and making that statement right. So you have to be on to that primitive fear-based brain of yours and recognize that it wants you to believe that you're in danger, wants to keep you safe. It's going to be looking for all of those half available women. So it can point to them and say, see, I told you, let's find a better story that is going to actually work to your advantage. And the fact of the matter is you live in a big city. The last submission lived in
the biggest cities.
I love your advice. Go into these environments with intentional filters. Start asking the qualifying questions so that, you know, you can filter out the half available women, and the fully available women are the ones that you're starting to see, right? And you have more choice.
Yeah. Take advantage of the fact that you are in such a big city and you have all of these opportunities, because there are definitely single women in Dallas, Texas. And it's easy to feel like all of them are taken when you've had a few experiences like this. You've got to challenge that line of thinking, because there are plenty of single women out there. You just haven't run into them yet, or you haven't had enough conversations to run into them yet.
Yeah, right. All right, Travis, keep us in the loop. We'd love to hear back from you. The third submission is from Graham. Should I move cities just to find love? Hi, I'm 28 and living in a small city in Canada. I've been chronically single since the pandemic. I didn't date in high school and only went on a handful of first dates before I turned 23. But in 2019, I finally hit my stride, living away from home for trade school, building a solid group of friends, and working towards a career I was genuinely excited about. That's also when I met my first and only girlfriend. We dated for 4 months and it ended badly. Then the pandemic hit. I had to move back home. The trade I trained for dried up, and I bounced between odd jobs until I landed something stable. Now I own a home and a car, and I live near my family, who I'm very close with. But in the last 5 years, I haven't been on a single date. It's not for lack of trying. My town only has about 10,000 people, and the dating pool feels more like a puddle. On the apps, I keep seeing the same handful of people or women who live hours away. So here's my dilemma. Should I move to a bigger city just for dating? I'm finally financially stable, and the idea of leaving my family and everything I've built is really tough. But at the same time, I feel stuck. Which brings me to part 2. There's one woman in town I'm interested in. She's my age, works as a bartender at a local brewery, and we've chatted a few times. She's always friendly, but it's hard to tell if that's just part of the job. I've seen her on Tinder and Hinge, but we've never matched. Some of my friends have told me not to bother with bartenders, but I can't help wondering, is it worth trying to ask her out in person? Or would that just come off as awkward or desperate? Right now, I'm not connected to any real community here. I work, have dinner at my parents' place, and occasionally go to concerts or out of town. There are many hobbies or events that make it easy to meet new people. My cousin, who's also newly single, has been the only person I've gone out with socially lately, and we've got a few events planned this summer. So I'm asking, how do I move forward? Do I start cold approaching people in town, even though it terrifies me? Should I travel to bigger cities for dates and social events? Keep grinding on the dating apps, or is this a sign I really need to move? I feel stuck romantically, socially, and sexually, and that's been making me feel self-conscious and unconfident, which I know doesn't help either. I just want some guidance on how to build real momentum again.
Wow, there's a lot in this submission. It's a really good submission, and we've had ones like it before, so I know you're not the only one who feels like they're running out of options.
He's running down this lane that's tucked between safety and possibility.
Yeah, totally. As you were reading the first section, my first thought was, well, have you tried anything else but the apps? It's sounding like this could be an easy fix here. And then you read on and it sounds like, no, you haven't tried anything other than the apps.
Well, he's going out with his cousin.
Yes.
So in real life approaches.
He's just starting to go out into social setting. He didn't say that that's how he's trying to meet women, though. You have to be very intentional about going out with the mindset of you could potentially meet somebody, right? Or with the courage to even get up and do something like that if you do run into somebody you're interested in. So for starters, that's the first thing I would change. I don't think it's the city you live in that's the problem. It usually never is. We are in the Midwest. We know what small town is. It's so funny how many people I went to college with that were like small town Wisconsin. And you don't know small towns until you've been in a small town in Wisconsin. That's like 100 people, 200 people. It's crazy.
Graduating class of 5.
And those people still find people magically, right? And so it's not the place. It's not the fact that you're in a city with only 10,000 people. Like you could start to build connections. You could start to meet more women, but you'd have to change your approach. Clearly the dating apps aren't working for you right now, or they're only pulling in people from places that are too far. So I absolutely would start looking at your other options. When it comes to meeting women, we talked about it in a couple episodes ago, the 3 ways that you can actually meet women. It's online, it's in person, and it's through other people. So online doesn't seem to be working. You have 2 other buckets that doesn't sound like you've tapped. So reaching out to other either single people or even people who are in relationships and being open about the fact that you're single is a really big piece of this. If people don't know that you're single and that you're trying to meet someone or that you're open to going on dates, they're probably not going to set you up with any of their single friends. So you need to be able to talk about it in an open way. You need to be able to be vulnerable in that way. There's different tiers to the people that are in your network, the people that could help connect you to other women. And you could be connected through any of those tiers, close friends, acquaintances, family members. But usually it's like the last resource we tap, whether it's because you don't want to be vulnerable with somebody or shame around being single. It seems to be the last place that people look, and it's like the highest leverage you can actually tap. And so if you're not doing that, if you're not talking about being single, which it sounds like your cousin, is that who it was? Maybe you guys have talked about being single and that's why you're going out together. That's a great start. I would start doing it more often with other people who are in your life who can help you with this, who can help connect you to their single friends or family, especially if approaching women or starting up conversations with women terrifies you. I think that going through mutual people is probably the best place to start. But inevitably, you're going to have to learn how to talk to women that you're interested in. I love dating apps because I think they can be a great tool, but I also hate dating apps because I think that they completely destroy people's confidence in what they're capable of and their confidence in like who they can attract just because they're not having success on the dating apps, which are not designed for men to win on, by the way. It's a very competitive space for men specifically. If you're somebody that's listening and the apps aren't working for you, it has a lot less to do with you and more to do with your profile and how many men are on these apps compared to how many women are on the apps.
Yeah. Yeah, it's clear you are craving more connection, more momentum, obviously more confidence. And I don't think the right question is, should I move? I think what you're asking is, am I worth betting on? Am I worth going all in on? And the answer is definitely yes. But betting on yourself doesn't have to mean selling your house or moving to the next city. It can start with small acts of bravery. So walk up to that bartender and tell her that you have enjoyed your chats. And
the only way to do it is in person at this point. If you've come across her profiles a couple times, I would say it's not a good option. Usually for people that you know, you've actually built a good rapport with this bartender, like you see her every single week and you guys chat every single time, then I would say I wouldn't do it because it's likely she's seen your profile. And if you guys haven't matched yet, that was intentional, right? I think obviously because she knows you, right? There's a lot that goes into dating apps. It's just a snapshot of you when somebody doesn't know you. But if somebody knows you and they're choosing not to match with you, it's usually not a good option. Let's say you come across a friend or somebody you knew from high school or whatever, to go outside of the apps and try to message them because you haven't matched with them usually isn't a good idea.
my thought was be brave, be bold, go sit at the bar and have a conversation with her. Let it organically come up that you are actively in the dating scene. She's a bartender, for God's sake. She probably has lots of ideas of where he can find single women. She probably knows a lot of them that, you know, have come through the bar. So even if it's not her, I know you said you found her interesting, but even if it's not her, you might be able to leverage that relationship. And that's what it looks like to be brave. I also think redefining the grinding on the apps, this is something that doesn't sound like it's worked for you over the course of the last 5 years. And that's just a signal that you need to fish in those other two buckets that Gracie talked about. It's not a failure. There's better ways for you to find your person. And you have so many free resources that are going to help you optimize your dating profile if you want to continue to use that as one of your resources. But how to approach women, like Gracie's got a great free guide on that.
And how to build chemistry with women. Yeah. It sounds like all three of those could be helpful for you. You can find those guides at www.datingwithgracie.com/guides. And that's guides plural with an S at the end.
So I don't think that you have to move in order to find love. It's clear that you have something stable and very rooted where you're at. And I'm sure that uprooting feels very overwhelming. I don't think that you have to move, but you may need to move closer to believing that you are a courageous, confident man. It's all about the mindset again.
One of the things that stuck out to me was right at the beginning. You said I've been chronically single since the pandemic. How does that feel to say? Probably pretty shitty. And it's just one of those things that you get into this loop of telling yourself. And it starts off as funny. It starts off as something maybe as a coping mechanism, but it's actually keeping you stuck. Telling yourself that you're chronically single does not make you want to move forward or does not make you want to do the things to actually meet women. It probably just makes you feel bad about getting out into the dating scene in general. And I used to do this too. When I wasn't being intentional about dating, I used to use little phrases like that, like, oh, well, we're back to the drawing board. That feels like shit. Nobody wants to start again or start over. And it's the same thing. When you say that you're chronically single since the pandemic, it's such a defeating statement. You need to stop telling yourself.
Right. When the truth is you're just building, like you're building upon all of the experiences that you've had, and you're now in the mode of refining. You've reached out to us. You can get these free guides. You are not broken. Your trajectory is going up at this point. So now is the time to make these tweaks that we've suggested and really lean in on those free guides.
100%.
And you have opportunities to tweak in all three of those categories, in real life, on the dating apps, and through the people that you know.
Yeah.
I personally believe that you shouldn't discount the bartender. I think it's worth having a seat at the bar and having a conversation that leads to the fact that you are single and are looking to date, and see where that goes.
Yeah. I think it's totally fair to talk about being single and that you're trying to date and that you are looking to get out on dates and leveraging her as somebody in your network. But I think because she hasn't matched with you on the dating apps, I would tread lightly when it comes to actually asking her out on a date. And this goes for everybody. If you're ever in a situation like this where you have seen somebody come up on the apps quite a few times and you know them or you have connections to them somewhere else, I would not take the opportunity to DM them on like social media or try to reach out on text saying something like, hey, I saw you on Tinder. That's awkward and weird. If she also saw you on Tinder and decided not to match with you, that's uncomfortable. And it probably was intentional. If you really want to give it a shot, like you said, start building some rapport first in person. Start leveraging the fact that you do know them. You do have the opportunity to build more of a relationship with them, and then take your shot.
Yeah. So I think the connection of these three submissions are pretty clear. It's all about the places we go. And I think about trusting your own inner compass. Truly it is. And we think about space being one of the barriers, whether it's too big or too small. It has everything to do with how you're going to think about how you're interacting in that space. And if you're showing up with confidence and courage, that is going to attract the right women. So check your mindset. If you want to move to a bigger city where you feel like you're fishing in a bigger pond, as long as that's something that you are motivated to do, of course, do it. But don't do it because you feel like you've exhausted all of your options and you're running from something.
Right.
Because that brain that's creating all of these unwanted feelings, that's going to come along with you.
Yeah.
And so you've got to get that straight first. I don't ever recommend changing jobs, changing living locations to get away from your problems. I think you got to solve the problem first. And it almost always starts at the level of your mind.
Yep. 100%.
All right. That was episode 27 in the can. We will see you guys back here next week. And until then, take care.
Thanks for listening to Just Ask Her. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to rate and review us. And be sure to follow Gracie on TikTok and Instagram at @datingwithgracie. Thanks again for listening.